You may be seated. Let the record reflect that all 14 members of the panel, the defendant, his attorneys, and the state's attorneys are present. State, please call your next witness.
State calls Christina Drury, Your Honor.
State, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Well, I'll call you Chris, because that's what you provide. Christina is your real name, correct?
Correct.
Will you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
My name is Christina Drury, and I'm a canine handler.
And Chris, you're a canine handler. You also have another occupation as well, correct?
I'm a registered nurse
How long have you been a registered nurse for?
since 2006.
All right. And you have family here in the area?
Yes, I do.
Where are you from originally?
Originally,
Like, well, we've talked before, right?
we've been back in Texas since 2012. We were in Tampa, Florida for 13 years before that.
And when you were in Tampa, when you were in Tampa, and even at the beginning of your time back here in Dallas, you didn't do any of the canine handling at that point, correct?
I became a canine handler in 2000. I began search and rescue in 2012 and started my first dog in 2013.
So explain to the jury how you got involved with search and rescue and then canine handling.
I was a trauma nurse in Florida, and when I moved back to the DFW area, I couldn't find a trauma job that I liked. I had ridden and trained horses in a previous career, and as I was going through, I came across search and rescue and said, I can do that, and felt like that was a way I could make a difference. And so I started looking for teams and joined my first search and rescue team in 2012. Got my first search and rescue dog this summer of 2012. And she officially started her training for search and rescue in September of 2013.
So explain that. We've heard search and rescue, you see the news, you see different things. What does it mean to be on a search and rescue team?
To be on a search and rescue team means that when somebody gets lost or goes missing, then we're one of the people that are called out by law enforcement. So we don't self-deploy, we don't go out looking for it. When someone gets lost or goes missing, then law enforcement calls us, and then we respond as a team to go out and find that person.
Does each member of a search and rescue team have a dog?
No.
There's different roles for each team member, correct?
There's different roles for each team member. On the team that I started on, you had to become what we call a flanker first. And a flanker goes out and is basically your support person for that search. So they run all of the radio communications. They keep track of navigation and where you are. They help keep track of the police officers that are with you. They keep track of whoever is out with you on that team so that we're not losing somebody else in an effort trying to find somebody.
You mentioned search and rescue dogs as well, and that you had your first search and rescue dog at the end of 2012. Explain to the jury what a search and rescue dog is.
There are different types of search and rescue dogs. My first dog is Stella. She is a border collie, and she started out as a live find dog, which means that she covers any of the open areas, your green belts, the forests, the big cleared areas that there are, and she looks for a live person. There are HRD dogs, which she is also, and HRD dogs are human remains detection dogs, and they go out and are looking for human remains. And they search in a similar capacity as a live find dog, but they are looking for the human remains part instead of the live person. And then trailing dogs is another type of search and rescue dog. Grandma, grandpa has Alzheimer's, dementia. They get out the house, nobody saw them leave. They call the police, then we're called in, and we can take a scent article from that person and actually run a trail to find them.
And each skill set, you mentioned 3 different skill sets that you have for search and rescue dogs.
Correct.
Is each skill set specifically taught to each dog, or can they go across the board on all 3?
They can go across the board. Stella is certified as a live find air scent dog. She is certified as an HRD land dog. She's also certified as an HRD water dog. I have a bloodhound that is certified as a trailing dog.
And so with Stella, she has 3 separate certifications,
Correct.
and those are 3 different areas that she had to be trained on, correct?
Correct.
And so let's talk about with human remains. How is Stella trained in human remains detection?
And the human remains detection, you train them on the different parts of a decomposing body. So they'll be trained on tissue, they'll be trained on teeth, they'll be trained on bone, they'll be trained on adipocere, which is what a body decomposes into as it decomposes. They're trained on tissue in different states of decomposition. And the way that you do that is they're taught to touch, and they get rewarded for that smell until they're imprinted on that smell. And then once they have that one, then you go to the next one. And once they have that one, then they go to the next one until they have as many of the different components that you can train on that you can. There are different times at different seminars when you have access to more of a body than you might have access to on a normal training period, and then you see what their behavior is for that.
And the group that you work for is a group called Mark 9.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And is that a nonprofit group?
Yes, it is.
How are y'all funded? How are the expenses paid for?
We are completely voluntary. We do have a few donations that come in, and those donations will do things like pay for the upkeep, some of the upkeep on the boat that we use for search and rescue, or might pay for repairs on a trailer. But almost everything that we do is voluntary and out of our own pocket.
So gas to get to places you got to pay for.
Yes.
The time that you spend, you're not compensated for that, correct?
No.
What about the certifications for the dogs? Is there an expense with that as well?
Yes. All of the certifications require money, and they're all out of your own pocket.
And you guys, you specifically at all of Mark 9, you guys do that just because it's what you want to do, right?
Correct.
With Stella, you mentioned that she can do all 3 skills, correct?
Correct.
You have other dogs as well.
Correct.
How many dogs do you have?
I currently work 2 dogs. I have certified 3.
And they all live with you and your husband.
Yes.
And Stella is how old now?
Stella is 7.
Was Stella involved in numerous other searches before October 22nd, 2017? Not specifically on this case, but just over the course of several years.
Stella has been involved in approximately 42 searches.
And you're under permission to publish State's Exhibit 9 at this time?
You may.
And these have been pre-admitted?
Admitted.
Yes. Just zoom out here. And Chris, who are we looking at there?
That is Stella.
All right, and Stella becomes significant in this case. She's your first dog, but explain the significance of her in this particular case.
Sorry.
Take a moment.
Stella is the one that found the body of Sharon Mathews.
Now, I want to take a step back so the jury understands how you and Stella got involved in this case. You mentioned that y'all do not solicit, I say business, you're not getting any money from this, you don't solicit anything.
No, correct.
How were you guys called in on this search?
On this particular search, Richardson PD had called Mark 9, and we had been called out on two other days, I believe. I was not present at those two searches, and instead of coming out and doing small area by small area, we asked them to get all the areas together that they wanted, and we came out on Sunday. And I believe we had 5 or 6 dogs, I'm not sure. And we divvied up the areas.
Were all the dogs human remains detection dogs?
Every dog that was there was an HRD dog. Every dog there was nationally certified.
And so, how, we've talked before about how all this works. It's fascinating, but how does Stella know what she's looking for in that kind of situation?
Because when I give her the command to search, then she knows that she's out there looking for that particular odor.
And when you say that particular odor, it's an odor of decomposition?
It's an odor of decomposition. She doesn't, when I give her the command to search, she doesn't know if she's looking for a 28-year-old bone or if she's looking for a body that's been out there for 24 hours. So she has in her bank, in her scent bank, a list of all of the odors that she's looking for that she's done through all of the imprinting. And so when she comes across one of those odors, then she's trained to give an indication. So in training, she might have a source that has tissue in it, and she'll indicate on that. And we might give her a source that's just a bone, and she'll indicate on that. So she's trained to give an indication on any of that she comes across.
And on this particular case, on October 22nd, 2017, you mentioned that it was a Sunday.
Correct.
Did y'all meet up somewhere and essentially divide up areas that you guys were going to look at?
We met at Richardson PD, and we were debriefed in a room upstairs at Richardson PD. And then we deployed to where our incident command was. And then from there, we each went out to the different sectors that we were supposed to search.
What area were you and Stella supposed to search that day?
We were given a park. I don't remember the name of it. It's on my search report, but we were given a park. I was deployed with two flankers and a detective.
And was that Detective Van Weeren of the Richardson Police Department?
Correct.
And you basically let Stella do her job at that point?
I did. I worked her on a line for part of it just because we were so close to traffic.
And what does that mean, worked on a line?
On a line, it means I had a 30-foot line that was attached to her so that I could make sure if she got into the scent of something and there was a road between me and where that scent is, she's not going to stop and wait for traffic. And so when I work her in a line, it just makes sure that if she gets into something, she can pull me that way, but she's not going to pull out in traffic and get hit by a car.
And as you started that search, starting in the park, did Stella pick up on scent?
Not originally. We started on the north side of the park, and we worked down to the west and then down to Centennial, and then worked down the south side of the park because the wind was coming from the north. And by working that south side, if there was anything to the north of me, that scent would have blown in and it would have pulled her in. When we got down towards the east end of the park, there was a water tower. And up until that point, she hadn't had any indication of anything. She had checked a metal door that had something below ground. She checked all the bushes and the trees and the playground equipment. But when we got to the water tower, she started to pull through an opening between the water tower and like an electrical pad. And on the other side of that opening, there was a big green belt that had train tracks that dissected it down the middle. And there was a clump of trees that were right there by that water tower, and she had a quick 90-degree body turn and a big head turn, and I saw it. And Chris Holmberg was one of my flankers. She's also a canine handler, saw it, and that's an indication that they have something. It's a change in body language, which is what you're looking for a lot of times. And so we watched her, and then she didn't have anything. So we worked south down along that green belt, and I took her offline because there's about a 0.35 miles approximately between the two streets, and so I had room to let her work without being online a little bit. And she didn't have any other indication down that side. And when I got down to Centennial, I put her back online, and we crossed over to the other side. And as we crossed on that side, she started hitting the bushes. And she'd get very animated and act like she might have had something. And then she'd be like, nope, it's not here. And then we kind of worked a serpentine pattern down that side of the green belt, working back north. And she'd get out into the middle of the field, and she'd stick her nose in the ground and pretend like there's something there. And then she'd be like, nope, it's not here. And then she'd go back to a tree, and she'd climb up the tree and act like it was up there. And then she'd be like, nope, it's not here. And she did that all the way down. And a good ways down the field, there was a big tree and a big brush pile, and she went crazy. I mean, she was animated, and it's here, and she went up the tree a couple of times. And I finally took her off the line because she couldn't work that brush pile safely being attached to me. And so we took her off the line and just let her work it. And I don't know how long she worked it for sure, but she worked it for a long time. And then she finally went, nope, and it wasn't here. And so we put her back online, and it was pretty clear from that brush pile to, I think the name of the road is Spring Valley. And we went back across the railroad tracks, and Chris and I saw a slight head turn to the right. And I said, let me just take her down to those culverts. We both saw the head turn, and just make sure that everything's okay. And I took her to the culvert that was on the west side and asked her to check it. And she's like, there's nothing here. So when there's nothing there, she doesn't want to go in. She's not going to waste her time. And so Chris and Holly and the detective stayed there, and I went over to go check the other culvert. And as I got over there, she got super animated again and started to go in the culvert and went about one body length in the culvert, and then came back out, and you could smell some decomposition. And when she came back out, one of the ways when they get into a lot of odors, they'll kind of go out and clear their nose and then come back in so that they can work it again. And I didn't get an indication right then. She just kind of kept working. So I took her across the street to the other side of the street, and there was water in it. And she got in the water, and she dunked her whole head underwater, but didn't seem to be quite as interested. And the wind was coming from the north, so it was blowing towards the other way. So as I crossed back over the street, I said, hey, guys, I think you need to come. I smell something, just to help me check it out. I had laid down on the bank to try and look in the culvert, but I didn't have a flashlight. We had been asked to search in plain clothes, and so I didn't have my normal pack with me. So as I stood up, I let her keep working on the end of my line as they came over, and I was explaining the behavior that I saw. And when we turned around to look at her, she was in a down with her nose pinpoint straight into the culvert. Didn't look at me, didn't look at anybody else. She wasn't going to budge for anything, and that is her official indication that she has found human remains. From there, we told Detective Ron, and he had a flashlight, and they were able to go from there. We turned the scene over to him. She started rolling around as if she had something on her. Any of us who had touched her had a tingling, burning feeling on our arms. And so we called for some decomp. We were able to decontaminate her away from the scene. And we were released, I think we made the find at 10:45. We were released from the scene at 3:30, approximately.
And was Stella okay after she got decontaminated?
She was fine.
Our permission to publish states states 8 as well as 41 through 44 and 49.
What was the first number?
States 8
8?
and then 41 through 44 as well as 49, all have been pre-admitted.
You may.
Thank you. Chris, let me show you a map here. States Exhibit 8. What are we looking at here?
That is my track that Stella and I took on that day.
And so you start out over on Grove Road. Hold on, here it is. Thing going here. All right, forget it. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. I'll just put my finger down here. That's where the park is.
Correct.
Near Grove Road, correct?
Correct.
And so you can see the path that you and Stella took coming to the east, right?
Correct.
Down south,
Mm-hmm.
then east over the railroad tracks,
Mm-hmm.
up north.
Mm-hmm.
We're now getting closer to Spring Valley, back on the railroad tracks, and up eventually to the area of Spring Valley and Bowser, which is where the culvert was, correct?
Correct.
Now, how did we get that map?
We run a track on all of our searches that shows where we are, where we've searched, what we've covered.
That's your GPS tracking of where you went that day with Stella, correct?
Correct.
All right. That's the route that she took to eventually get to Sharon's body in the culvert.
Correct.
Show you States 41. Is that the area looking, you're basically on Spring Valley, looking to the south, you see the water tower back there, and the culvert is, you can't really see it there, but it's just off the road and the sidewalk there. Is that correct?
It's near that telephone pole.
Near that telephone pole, but down underneath. And then States 42, I'm going to zoom a little bit here. You can kind of start to see the culvert right in the middle of the screen, a little opening right there, correct?
Correct.
And then States 43 is another picture of it. This is a better view as you start to kind of swing around and look down the culvert, right? And 44 is the entrance of that culvert. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there's a little bit of water in there, and you said that Stella actually went into the culvert a little bit, came back out, and sat down, which was the signal, correct?
Sort of. She went in about a body length the first time that I was on this side, and she was super animated, came out biting grass, biting the air, which is a stress reaction to the overwhelming odor that she had. I went around to the other side of the culvert on the opposite side of the street, and that's the water that she got into, where she had her whole head underwater, but not as much interest. So she was licking the water. A lot of times they can taste the odor. It's not that she's thirsty. They can taste the odor in that water. But that side is where she got over it. And then when I took her back around to the other side, and as we were discussing things and I left her on the line to continue to work, when we turned around to look at her, she had her nose just inside the culvert in a down, straight pin line, not moving. She wasn't gonna budge.
And when you're referencing the water on States 49, that's what we're talking about here. The other side of the culvert, where there's some more water that comes out, correct?
There was some more water on the other side of the culvert, and it was enough to get her belly wet. But the main water she put her head in is on this side of the culvert, not the other side.
Is on States 49.
Correct.
States 44, there's a little bit of water. That's when you mentioned she actually went in a body length.
She went in a body length the first time on this side. Her indication's on the other side, not this one.
And basically, you guys just walked around, and the culvert is essentially a drainage ditch, so there's one side, and then there's a road, and another side, and they both just funnel water out.
Correct.
After your involvement, at that point, you just let the police kind of do their thing. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Took care of Stella, took care of yourself, and that was the end of your involvement on this case. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, I'll pass the minute, Sean.
Defense.
We have no questions, Your Honor.
Any objections to this witness being released?
No, Your Honor, no, you stay.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. You may step down. State, please call your next witness.
State called Officer Savage, Your Honor.
Officer, if you come on up to the stand, and before you step up, I'm gonna have you raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
All right, you may be seated.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Officer Savage. Will you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Go ahead and spell your last name for the court report.
Yes, sir. My name is Officer Jeremy Savage, and it's S-A-V-A-G-E.
And obviously, you're employed as a police officer with the city of Richardson.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been a police officer with the city of Richardson?
So I've been a police officer for 5 years.
And tell the jury a little bit about the training that goes into becoming a police officer with the city of Richardson.
So there's initial police academy, and that's true for becoming a police officer anywhere. So that's 6 months long. It was in Arlington, Texas. Afterwards, there's what's called a mini academy, which is probably about 2 weeks long. And there's a field training officer program that's 4 months long, and then you're put on probation for 6 months after that before you're a full-fledged police officer.
So during that training, the 6 months of training, what sort of things do you learn at the academy?
We learn about the penal code, about the traffic code, about tactics, officer safety issues, how to write reports, how to communicate with people, those sorts of things, sir.
And you also have military experience as well, correct?
Prior to joining the Richardson Police Department, I spent 20 years in the United States Marine Corps, sir.
You served for over 20 years, honorably discharged, and decided to continue on with law enforcement career after that, correct?
Yes, sir. I retired in 2014, and that's when I became a police officer.
And what, obviously there's different duties that police officers serve, different divisions. What division are you in currently?
So I'm in the patrol division.
And what does that mean?
So that means that's the guys that you see every day in the police cars that are driving around the city. So we answer calls for service, we conduct traffic enforcement, and we conduct preventive crime patrols.
How long have you been working patrol?
For those 5 years, sir.
You were working patrol back on October 7th, 2017, correct?
Yes, sir.
Got a call about a missing child out at 919 Sunningdale in Richardson, correct?
That is correct, sir.
That's within Dallas County.
Yes, sir.
Richardson, some of it's in Collin, some of it's in Dallas. This particular address was in Dallas County, correct?
Yes, sir.
And tell the jury about the nature of the call, what information you had heading into it.
So the call came out as a missing child call, and the call comments stated that the father put the child outside of the residence as a form of discipline for not drinking the daughter's milk, and the child was last seen at 3 o'clock in the morning.
So what are you thinking, and this is about 8, the call comes in about 8:08, you respond pretty quickly. What are you thinking? It's 8:30 in the morning.
So-
And you get this call.
Yes, sir. It's a serious call in that we have a 3-year-old child that's missing. We have a 5-hour time lapse in time where the child was last seen until reported. So it's a serious call, and we responded quickly.
And this was a Saturday morning, correct?
Saturday morning, yes, sir.
So Saturday morning, in terms of the amount of resources available for Richardson, when I say resources, amount of patrol officers available, there aren't as many as some other times. Is that fair to say?
So typically, Monday through Friday, we have 12 to 14 officers on the street. Saturdays and Sundays are a little slower days, and we usually have around 10.
And had you just come on duty at that point?
So I got on duty at 7 o'clock. We usually have a morning briefing, and then I have to inspect the car to make sure it's ready to go for the day. So it usually takes about 45 minutes for those two things. I was on the street about 7:45.
First call of the morning.
First call of the morning.
Your Honor, at this time, permission to play State's Exhibit 53, which is a 911 transfer call that's been pre-admitted.
You may.
October 7, 2017, at 8:08 a.m. with a GMT offset of -300 minutes. Agent ID, extension is 17.
Purchasing Communications, this is Lorraine.
This is police.
Yes, it is.
Sir, I would want to report a child missing.
Do you want to report a child missing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How old is this child?
3 years old.
You're missing a 3-year-old?
Yes, sir.
What happened to him or her?
Well, I mean, I tried to do some disciplinary action on her, but I don't know what happened. I don't see her when I passport her.
Okay, what's your address?
919 Sunningdale, Richardson, Texas.
When did you see her last?
Right behind our house.
No, when?
This early morning.
Today?
Yeah,
Like what time?
around 3 o'clock, early in the morning.
She was behind your house at 3 o'clock in the morning?
No, see, she has difficulty, she's stubborn in eating, and so I've been trying to get her to eat some food, but she would not, so I wanted her to finish her meal, but she did not, and so I said, we can get time out. She would not listen to me and said, okay, you're going to stand behind our house, you're going to stand there, and I'm going to go inside. And I came and checked her, she was standing right there, and I took her a little farther from our house, and I could see her. But I just purposely stayed for maybe around 5 to 10 minutes, and when I went back, so I was gone.
So she's been missing since 3 o'clock in the morning?
Right, sir.
Okay, is your backyard, is it pit?
It depends.
And she was in the backyard, correct?
She was behind the fence. Our behind our house is the railway line.
Like, not where it's fenced?
Can you repeat that?
You said not where it's fenced, so you let your child back further than the fence, like where it's not a fence?
Yes, correct, beyond the fence.
Okay. What was she wearing?
She's wearing black PJs and a pink shirt.
Like pajama bottoms were black?
Yes, correct.
And the top was pink?
Pink.
Okay. What is your phone number?
214-551-1317.
And what's your last name?
Mathews, Mathews.
First name?
Wesley, Wesley.
Okay. So this is at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's 8:11 now. Have you been looking for her for 5 hours?
Yeah, we were outside. I went outside trying to see where she could be. It's a little dead day, but it's very dark. So right now the light is coming up. So I'm just going to start taking a look right now. But all night, I don't try to follow now.
But you've been looking for her since 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, I did look for her for maybe 2 hours.
Okay. And you looked inside the house, underneath beds and closets and everything?
Yeah, I did. I looked everywhere inside the house. There's no way she could have come in. She's a 3-year-old little girl. She cannot come in through the backyard fence at all. So anyway, we looked all around the house. There's no trace of her.
Okay. All right. I'll have an officer meet you there.
Thank you, sir.
All right, bye.
And so Officer Savage, you obviously, you can't hear that call as it's coming in, but you get call notes on your screen, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And is it basically saying what is related to the 911 call to you?
It is that he last saw the child at 3 o'clock in the morning outside of the residence behind the house. He put her out there because she wasn't drinking her milk or something to that effect.
So eventually you arrive to 919 Sunnydale, correct?
Yes, sir.
Get out of your car, get to the front door, and who's there at the front door?
That's where I met Mr. Matthews.
All right, and for the record, do you see the defendant Wesley Mathews at the courtroom today?
That is correct, sir.
All right, can you describe what he's wearing?
He's wearing a gray suit with a blue tie and a white shirt.
Let the record reflect the witnesses identify the defendant, Your Honor.
The record will so reflect.
So Officer Savage, you get to the door, defendant opens it up, and what does he say?
He tells me very similar to what was played on the 911 call, that he hasn't seen his daughter since 3 o'clock. She was placed outside of the residence, and that's when I kind of gathered the resources that I did have to begin searching for Sharon.
And what do you mean by that?
So I had another officer that arrived on scene with me at the same time, Officer Scroggins, and actually prior to arriving on scene, I actually told Scroggins to just go back to the alleyway and then I would meet Mr. Matthews. And then we went to the very exact location where Mr. Matthews said he placed his daughter, and we began the search from that location.
Did you have other officers arrive as well?
Absolutely. Supervisor came, and probably about 6 or 7 other officers came out there that day.
So the bulk of the Richardson Police Department that was on call that morning was out there within minutes.
Within 30 minutes to an hour. We probably had, within the first 30 minutes, we probably had 5 or 6, and then up to 10 to 12 within probably an hour to 2.
So what's going through your head?
Well, this was my call, so it's my responsibility to coordinate all these efforts until supervisor arrives, and so I kind of took responsibility of that. So a little bit of panic, a little bit of concern, all ran through my mind.
Did you eventually look through the house, the residence?
I did on 2 occasions, sir.
And obviously you didn't find anything there.
No.
Did the defendant do anything to let you know that that was going to be a waste of time?
During the search of the house, he followed me around the house instead of leading me through a house, which you would expect if that was your house. So looking at the video now, it looks like I'm frantically looking through the house, and he's just kind of following me around.
So you're the one who's frantic, and what is the defendant's demeanor like?
Very, very calm and showing no remorse, concern for his daughter.
You walked through the entire house twice, you said.
I did, sir.
Did you notice anything in particular about the laundry room?
After the fact, I noticed it, but there was laundry done. There was clothes in the dryer and in the washing machine.
Like it had just been washed, correct?
Yeah.
And clothes in the washing machine.
Yes, sir.
Anything odd about that?
Well, just if you were searching for your child and had great concern of where your child was at, you wouldn't be doing laundry.
And as you mentioned at the time, you don't really, maybe you notice it, but you kind of file it away. Is that fair to say?
I didn't even think of it at that moment in time.
Because what's your priority?
I got to find Sharon.
You're not trying to collect evidence or see who's washing clothes or anything like that, correct?
My 100% job and responsibility on that date was to find the little girl, and I didn't find her.
Did the defendant provide you with pictures of Sharon?
Mrs. Mathews gave me a photo, which I was able to send out to all the other officers.
And why is that important?
Well, we had, again, there was 10 to 12 officers, and they were going door to door, and I think we canvassed the entire neighborhood and knocked on every door, so that photo was important to show people that we're coming in contact with and getting the photo out to the public.
What about how the Amber Alert works? Are you familiar with that at all?
Sir, I'm not familiar with that.
Would you agree with me, though, having a picture would be important for an
Oh,
Amber Alert?
absolutely.
So you're getting that information out, it's going to different people at Richardson, it's going up your chain of command, and there's a lot of moving parts all dedicated to finding Sharon. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
You talk about canvassing the entire neighborhood. You got the fire department involved, correct?
Sir, the fire department came out, the volunteers came out. I believe we had a helicopter come out, we had dogs come out. We devoted 100% of the resources of the department to find Sharon.
And this is day one, within the first couple hours, few hours.
Yes, sir.
Everybody in Richardson is scrambling to find Sharon, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the whole time, the defendant is saying, for all he knows, she's still alive. She just wandered off somewhere.
Yes, sir.
Check the cars in the house, in the driveway, in the garage.
I did. So there was 3 cars at the residence, 2 in the garage, 1 in the driveway. Searched all 3 of them twice.
You also had body cam at the time, correct?
I did, sir.
And was it working?
Yes, sir, it was.
Yeah, approach. You're on. Officer Savage, I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 54. We've had a chance to review your body cam, correct?
Yes, sir.
Does this appear to be an exact duplicate copy of your body cam?
Yes, sir, it does.
All right. And when we reviewed it, and when you reviewed it, there weren't any alterations, additions, deletions. Nothing was changed off of there, correct?
Nothing changed.
And the entirety of this body cam is about an hour or so long, correct?
Yes, sir. I think there's a total of 4 videos, and the first one was about 50-something minutes, and the other 2 were a couple of minutes each.
And the first one involves talking to the defendant as well as the search throughout the house, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the yard, the trees, the whole area, correct?
A thorough search.
State offer State's 54 at this time.
No objections, Your Honor.
State's 54 is admitted.
Before I publish that, Officer Savage, I want to, with the court's permission, publish States 4 through 7, which are some maps, so the jury has an idea about the area that we're looking at. Permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may.
All right, let me zoom out here. State's Exhibit 4, Officer Savage, is a map basically of the Dallas area, Richardson being in the north up here, off of 75. It's the east side of Richardson where 919 Sunnydale is, correct?
That is correct, sir.
About, I don't know, 15 miles north of where we are right now, is that approximate?
Approximately, yes, sir.
Depending on traffic, it could be a 20-minute drive or a 2-hour drive, I guess, right?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 5, a little bit closer view of 919 Sunnydale. What kind of area are we talking about where the house was located?
Sir, this is a very nice neighborhood. Home prices, $300,000+. Centennial on the north, Buckingham on the south. There's a grocery store, Kroger over on Adelia. So it's a nice neighborhood.
State's Exhibit 6, I'm going to zoom out and then kind of zoom back in. The marker is 919 Sunnydale.
Okay.
That's the house we're talking about, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And so he mentioned some trees, right?
Yes, sir.
Are those the trees we're talking about just to the just to the south of the house?
Can you point to it one more time,
Yep.
please?
This-
Those are the trees that we walked out towards.
It's just outside. You get the house here, 919 Sunnydale. You got a backyard, fenced in, an alleyway here, and then this green belt area, and then the train tracks next to that, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And so that area on the bottom of State 6, that tree area, and it's not a major forest or anything, but there's some trees back there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Y'all searched that area. That was the area that he pointed y'all towards, correct?
That's the area, he said that first group of trees is where he last saw Sharon Mathews.
And then looking at State's Exhibit 7, and I'm gonna zoom out. 919 Sunnydale, let me zoom out a little bit more. All right, 919 Sunnydale is at the very bottom of our map here with the red dot, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And so you later found out on October 22nd that Sharon's body was in a culvert that's about a half mile away, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that culvert is located in Spring Valley and Bowser. In the intersection where I'm pointing, the Spring Creek Bowser intersection, there's a little culvert up there, correct?
There is, sir.
And in fact, were you out in that area at all?
No, sir.
Okay. If I told you that you could actually stand at the culvert and see the backyard of the defendant's house, does that seem reasonable to you?
It does, sir.
All right, it's not very far.
No.
Right? And he never led you in that area, never said there was a body in the culvert, never told you where Sharon was, just had you guys on a wild goose chase. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
All right. Permission published States 54 at this time, Your Honor.
You may.
And for record purposes, I'm going to start the video 40 seconds in, well, 45 seconds in when you actually get to the door. I'm going to stop the video at about 11 minutes and 45 seconds, and I'll tell you when that is and explain that. This entire thing will be for the jury to see. It's 58, 59 minutes long, but we're going to play the first 11 minutes here today, okay?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that there is relevance to that for the jury to see that?
Well, it shows our response. The department actively was looking for Sharon. It does. Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to start at 45 seconds into State's Exhibit 54, Officer Savage's body.
Hi, sir. It's Officer Savage with the Richardson Police Department. You're missing the son or daughter? It's a daughter. Okay. First off, is your wife here as well? Wife?
35 degrees, can you tag one?
Hold on, sir. 15's on tag.
Jeremy, when you start talking to them, verify that they put her outside the fence, like back in the alley.
Let's walk back outside, sir.
Make sure there's not extra fence inside the yard.
I'm going to walk outside with Father right now. We'll find out. Sir, if you could show me where you put your last seen your daughter. You put her where?
32.
That's the last place you saw her was by these trees over here. And this was 3 o'clock in the morning. Sir, have you, say again? Have you checked all through here already?
I asked once already, but the daylight just came, so maybe
Okay.
can we do it again?
Yeah, we're going to do it again. 215, if I can get a third unit, if you have one available to canvass the area.
What's her name?
That's perfect, you know your kids already around.
15 to 32, if you meet me at the rear of the residence when you get here. Okay, sir, well, Dad, let me talk to you. So we're going to have one more unit come out here and help us look here. Okay, so her name is Sharon.
Yes, it's E-R-I-N.
Sherin. Last name is
Mathews.
same as yours, right?
1 T.
1T. She is 3 years old.
Yes.
What's her birthday?
7/14/14.
7/14/14. Okay. What was she wearing?
Black bottoms and
Like PJs?
tights.
They were like tights?
Yeah.
Dancing
26.
tights?
26.
What kind of top was she wearing?
dark
25, you do.
hot pink.
And me to the
she have flip-flops on?
Yes.
Like a flip-flops? What color are the flip-flops? Pink flip-flops. So, that happened last night, 3 o'clock in the morning? You guys were having, you having trouble with her, or she's not
Yeah, I mean,
misbehaving?
a little bit of a misbehaving time. She does not eat everything that she's given to her. We have had concerns about her weight gain. She's, for a 3-year-old, she's 21 pounds.
And that's too light.
Very light, extremely light. And doctors and all the pediatricians here are all telling us, you're not feeding her, you're not feeding her. And we feel like we're working overtime trying to feed her. So yesterday evening around 8 o'clock, she was given 8 ounces milk in her
Acidic, yeah.
Yeah, and she's, she drank half of it by 9:30ish, and then she wouldn't drink anymore. I got upset because I'm like, no, she's not going to sleep until she finishes not 8 ounces, because that's the only milk that she's at. And my wife is like, that's okay, let's give her a bath, let her go to sleep. And we hit the bed by around 10, maybe 10:15ish, but I just couldn't sleep at all. I wanted to make sure she drank the whole thing. So I told her, okay, Sharon, we're going to finish the rest of it, maybe 4, maybe 5 ounces. And she gets in the kitchen, she's still standing there. As though nothing is wrong. I mean, what are you going to do to me kind of deal? Like, no, girl, don't be pushing me like that. You should be drinking your milk. No. It's like, okay, I'm going to put you in the garage. I'm going to stand right there. You're going to stand in the garage. Let's see you drink your milk. No.
And this all was about what time?
This is around 11:30ish, 12.
You put her in the garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm standing right next to her. She wouldn't drink. Told her, I'm going to close the door and go inside. No. She's standing right there, staring at me. Then I, opened the garage door and said, see, right behind you. There's nothing there. Don't push me. You have to drink your milk. Nothing at all. And I go inside, taking my phone and coming back. And then, again, probably around 1 o'clock, just the same position that she was in. Then I said, okay, you're going to stand right by the car right over there.
Where that car is at?
The red car, that's our car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's around maybe, around 1:45ish. No movement in her milk canal. I waited till around 2:30. I kept going back inside. She just stood there. Right? Pretty dark outside. Just the right mood here.
Sure.
That's all. And I told her, okay, girl, you're going to stand by the place where there's nobody here. You're going to stand right there. And I stood her by the white pole that's close to her house. At least I can see her. Nothing, no.
She had her cup of milk.
At that time.
At that time, when she was out here. Okay.
And then I'm like, okay, that's it. You're not drinking milk. You're not going to waste my time. I took the milk with her. Probably 2:45ish, maybe around 3ish. You're going to stop there. And I'm going to go inside and you won't see me. And then slowly reaching in. Like she will cry or she'll be like that, I don't go.
You working on getting that photo of her? Jeremy's with Dad right now. The story we're getting from him is that about 3 o'clock this morning, he took her out and set her by some trees, probably about 30 yards outside the back fence. And that was the last he saw her. Okay, he just left her there? That's correct.
Hey, this is Savage. Hey, this is going to be a 3-year-old girl. Her first name is Sharon. Last name is going to be Mathews. She was wearing black tights, a dark pink t-shirt, and pink flip-flops. Last seen at 3 a.m. And I'll get a photo here in a couple minutes. Okay, I'm sorry. So,
Slowly going by the fence, no sound from her, nothing like that. I was nothing.
Full 43 clear.
okay, so then you moved her from the pole to the tree, which you're just increasing the distance you're putting away from her.
Okay, that will tell her, okay, I finished my milk. Nothing on that side. Then I get, I get more stubborn, I go inside. No, I'm not going to watch her. See if she's going to, I have my ears out, I'm not going to watch her. I come by around 3:15ish, 3 o'clock. It's dark, but there's no, there's this time supposed to be around. she's playing over here.
Hold on. 15, go ahead.
That's one, please.
15's on tack 1.
Hey, Jeremy, I know your hands are full right now. Have you given the supervisor a heads up on this yet?
Negative. I'm still getting the rest of the story. But yeah, I'll give him a call as soon as I'm finished with that.
Okay.
Okay, so 3:15, you went to check on her and she's gone.
She's gone.
Okay, so why did you call the police at 3:15 in the morning?
I started walking all around. I don't know what to tell, what to say. Definitely, it's on me. This spot is on me.
Did you go to sleep at all from the
Yes.
You haven't slept.
No,
Okay.
I wakes up at 5:30 in the morning, and
So she didn't know about this until 5:30.
she was sleeping with the older one.
Okay, so let me ask you a couple questions. Do y'all have any friends in the neighborhood? Does she feel comfortable? Does she have any friends in the neighborhood that she would
doesn't
walk
go
with?
to any of these houses.
No friends? No relatives?
No relatives.
Do y'all have relatives in the area that would have come and picked her up? Is there anybody that would have her right now?
I don't know. I don't think so. Nobody would be expecting her to stand here. What kind of crazy happened with her?
Okay. No friends in the area. Sir, do you have a picture of your daughter?
Yeah.
Let's go get that picture.
36. The supervisor responded is located.
Thank you.
So walk me through it.
Okay, so it's a series of events. The last thing that happened, he put her by the tree at 3 o'clock. He went to check on her at 3:15. She was already gone. So she could be, in a span of walking distance and sleeping somewhere.
I've seen like dog-like creatures, like coyotes, I think.
226.
Maybe a couple of weeks back. Yeah. You've seen we do.
We So let's get the picture, sir. Let me get the picture from you. And I think if we have whoever's in a vehicle can go up and down the railroad tracks on both sides. Maybe she's went across the tracks and
She's got black pants on.
got black tights on, a pink shirt, flip-flops, and as last you saw her, she had her little sippy cup of milk.
I took that away from her.
Okay, so no sippy cup of milk.
Pink shoes, pink
flip-flops.
There's no way she could have sneaked back into the house.
I told my wife that we searched the house.
Yeah, the information on your signal 10 to Redwood at 8:31.
So for purposes of the record, I'm going to stop at 11:41. Again, the jury can feel free to watch all of it, but we're going to play that portion for now. After this portion, you go in the house, search around. Fair to say that the defendant's demeanor never really changes throughout that hour or over an hour you spent with him?
It was very consistent to what we saw just now, sir.
Ever seem particularly upset about anything?
No, sir.
Ever seem frantic about anything?
No, sir.
Ever seen, I don't know, any level of emotion if your daughter's missing or dead?
No emotion, sir.
After you searched the house, you had your interaction with the defendant, did you do any evidence collection or anything else in this particular case?
I did not collect any evidence, no, sir.
All right, I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Defense.
Officer Savage, thank you for your service to the Marine Corps, to this country. We have no further questions, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
We have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any objections to this witness being released?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. You may step down.
Yes, ma'am.
State, please call your next witness.
State calls Thomas Taggart, Your Honor.
And before you step up, please raise your right hand. Do Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you may be seated, and stage you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
My name is Thomas Tedder.
And who do you work for, Mr. Tedder?
I'm a special agent with the FBI.
So how does one become a special agent with the FBI?
Long, convoluted process, but a little history about me. I've been with the Bureau for a little over 22 years. The first 4.5, I was a IT manager here in Dallas. Went to the academy 2 weeks after 9/11, was assigned to the New Orleans division. I worked there for about 12.5, 13 years. During that time, I worked child exploitation cases. I also was certified through IASIS, which is the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists, as a forensic examiner in 2006. In 2008, I was certified through the FBI as a forensic examiner. During my time with the FBI, I take yearly proficiency tests and training to keep up to date with all of the new forensic tools that come out that we use.
And in terms of forensic tools, are we talking about cell phones, laptops, other things?
Correct. The only thing I don't do is video, but yes, we use certain forensic tools that are approved through the FBI for the RCFLs. I am currently the acting lab director at the North Texas Regional Computer Forensics Lab, and I'll call it the NTRCFL from here on out. So we go through yearly proficiency tests for those new tools that come out to make sure that we understand how to use those tools in an effective and efficient manner.
And do you provide services for the United States government as well as local law enforcement?
The North Texas RCFL is a cooperative effort, so we do cases for federal agencies, the FBI, DEA. We also do them for state and local agencies. Member agencies, we also have task force officers that work at the RCFL, and those member agencies bring cases to the RCFL on a regular basis.
Okay, so the reason you're here is on behalf of a case involving Sharon Mathews and the accused Wesley Mathews, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So how did you become aware of this case, or how did you get brought into this case?
In October of 2017, a phone was brought to me by Detective Victor Diaz through another detective, I think Gerhardt. But Detective Diaz brought that phone to have it examined, and they were looking to have that phone dumped in a quick manner so that they could review it. They were looking for a missing child.
All right, and so what does dumped mean in terms of a cell phone extraction?
I did what I could do with that extraction using this particular phone was an iPhone. At that time, we did a iPhone backup extraction of that, which the program we used at the time was Celebrate, and so we could take that extraction and put it into a report form and let the detectives review that report, looking for what they needed to look for.
Do you remember when that was, when you were tasked with that assignment?
October 7th, 2017. I gave him a preliminary report on the 8th, and then I finished up with a final report. Now, the preliminary report was put on a thumb drive. The final report was on I think a Blu-ray, but they were the exact same report. And the only reason I specified that it was preliminary because it could change before I finish up, but in this particular instance, it did not.
Was there something in particular that you guys were looking for immediately within that phone?
I do believe they were looking for locations. I didn't review the phone at that time. I did the extraction for the investigator review.
Okay. But there was a sense of urgency.
Extreme sense of urgency, yes.
Okay, because you got the phone on the 7th, which is the day after Sharon went missing, correct?
Correct.
And you had it extracted and turned over to
Less than 24 hours.
Police Department, less than 24 hours. That's a fast turnaround.
That's a priority one, yes.
Okay. And so you did that in this case. So the phone extraction in and of itself, you said was the phone you had was an iPhone.
That's correct.
And that was Wesley Mathews' phone?
That's correct.
Okay. And you were able to get an extraction in that case, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So may I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I want to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 55. Do you recognize this?
I do.
Okay, what is that?
This would be a subsequent extraction I did on that same iPhone using a new tool that we had in 2019.
Okay. And so let's talk about that briefly. The extraction you did on the 7th, you used a program through Celebrite, correct?
It was correct. I used Physical Analyzer, which is a Celebrite extraction tool for that phone at that time.
And then you took that extraction and ran it through another program subsequent to that?
Actually, with iPhones, you do the extraction and the report both in Physical Analyzer.
Okay. And that's what we have in State's Exhibit 55?
That extraction that you have now was done at a later time through a new extraction process that we have, and then run through Physical Analyzer as well for the report.
Okay. So what we have here in State's Exhibit 5 is going to be the most complete copy of the extraction you can get from Wesley Mathews' iPhone?
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, state law for State's Exhibit 55.
No objections, Your Honor.
State's 55 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And obviously, this contains a tremendous amount of data, correct?
That's correct.
In fact, this is on Blu-ray. Many gigs, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So within this disk, there's a program that we can then compile all that data and look at it so that we can manage the data and look at it in ways that we can understand. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. So when you take this data and run it through a program that allows you to view or sort and look at things that are in there, we can create certain spreadsheets. Is that fair?
And I can explain that to you a little better if you'd like.
I'd love for you to.
Within Physical Analyzer, you can create different types of reports. You can create an HTML report. In this particular instance, we created a UFED reader report, which is the equivalent of a portable case. That allows you to take the extraction and look at all the data within that extraction and create your own sub-report. So when you create those spreadsheets, you're creating sub-reports from the Blu-ray, from the main report.
So you can create sub-reports which will, you can sort out and look at particular items with a phone, such as text messages. You can sort out calendar entries. You can sort out
Date ranges, anything that you'd like to do with that report, you can go ahead and sort out certain things and text chains. If you want conversation between two people, you can sort that text chain out and highlight those and check those and just print those out.
Okay. And also, you can also look within these spreadsheets or sub, what do you call them, sub?
They're sub-reports. They're reports from the UFED, from the portable case.
You can also identify items that have been deleted.
That's correct.
Okay. Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how, if you delete something on the phone, you would otherwise be able to see it later on?
On the phone, if you delete something very similar to you on a computer, when you do something on the phone, you as the end user a lot of times won't see that. But using certain programs, it's still there. That first character of that file is tilde out, and that space is made available for data to be overwritten, but that data is still there. So using a forensic tool, we can get a lot of that deleted data back, depending on the device you're using. And for the iPhone, in this case, there's some data we can get back, but some of it is encrypted. So there's a certain amount of data we can get back that is shown up. If you look at the report, it'll be highlighted off and turned red. So that it'll show on the left-hand side. So the investigator can look at that report and say, there's 5,000, I'm making a number up here. And out of that, there's 400 that were deleted because those are hyphened off and they're shown in red.
Okay. And so in this case, there was stuff that was deleted, correct?
There was stuff that was deleted.
Okay. May I approach again, Your Honor?
You may.
Special Agent, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 63 and 64 right now. And these are timelines, correct?
Correct. And that's one of the things you can do with that is you can timeline everything that's in the phone. So you can take a certain day and show everything that they've done, web history, phone calls, text messages, and you can parse that out and just look at a certain period of time.
And it breaks it down by event within the phone, correct?
Correct. Every time something happens on the phone that the phone's going to record, and the physical analyzer can pick up. There's some data that doesn't get picked up because physical analyzer doesn't see it.
Okay, so you could have a text message followed by a web search, followed by a calendar entry, followed by a phone making an update to itself.
Correct.
Just in whatever order that happens shows up in these timelines.
Correct.
And so on State's Exhibit 63, it's going to be a timeline from February of 2017, is that correct?
Correct.
And this was from the phone's extraction.
This is from that phone's extraction, that's correct.
And then State's Exhibit 64 is going to be the same sub-report timeline, but for a different day.
For 10/6.
10/6, and I think it goes on
I
to
think it goes to
10/7.
10/7, correct.
Okay. And then I'm going to also show you, so that's 63 and 64, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, and 62, okay? And are those text messages that have been further synthesized down and put in a way that the jury could actually
They've been put
understand?
into these are text messages in the time frame, but they've been put into something where you can actually show the interaction between the two people talking. So yes, this would be a reflection of what was in the timeline.
Okay. All right. Your Honor, at this time, State offers 56 through 64 for all purposes.
No objection.
States 56 through 64 are admitted for all purposes.
And Special Agent, briefly, can you explain to the jury, this is an iPhone that we're talking about. Can you generally explain what location services are as it relates to an iPhone or Apple ecosystem?
You can turn location services on your iPhone. You can do it on a Samsung phone as well. What that allows you to do if you're sharing your location with somebody, for example, and I'll use myself as an example. I'm somewhere in Dallas and I want my wife to come find me. I can drop a pin and share my location with my wife so she can find me without me having to try and tell her how to get down there. You can do that on the iPhone. You can do that with another person for a period of time, for an hour, for 1 minute, for one time. On this phone, it was done for a long period of time. It was turned off at 3:50 in the morning on 10/7.
All right. May I approach one more time, Your Honor?
You may.
I'll show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 65. You recognize that?
I do.
What is that?
This is a photograph that I created from Wesley's phone, showing that location services were stopped at 3:50 in the morning with Cindy Wife, and Cindy Wife stopped sharing location with you also at 3:50 in the morning.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, State would move to admit State's Exhibit 65.
No objections, Your Honor.
State 65 is admitted.
Permission to cover?
You may.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a photograph you took of Wesley's iPhone, correct?
Correct.
And what we're looking at here is Saturday?
So, Mr.
Oh.
Mr. Mitchell, the
Yes,
system turns off at 4:30, so you have to turn everything back on, so even the screens. So let's see. I'm gonna go to courtroom. Display controls.
I can try and get out of the way for y'all.
You mean turn, are you gonna do it or are you gonna do it?
I'm going to attempt to assist you. Give me
Okay.
1 second.
business. So on State's Exhibit 65, this is a photograph you took of Wesley's iPhone, correct?
That's correct.
And what we see here is information that was, I guess, imprinted within the phone when Wesley did something. Is that fair?
That is a system event that is saved to that text chain when Wesley did something to the phone.
And this is, what we're looking at is a text message between Wesley and Sini, correct?
Correct. Initially, when we did the report, we had location services showing up at 3:50 in the morning, and then we had 2 iMessages, or 2 chats. I went back and I physically looked at the phone to verify what those chats were because I had headers, but I had no information within the chat. When I did that, this is actually what those 2 chats were information going back and forth, turning off location sharing services between the 2.
So what we know here is on Saturday, October 7th at 3:50 a.m., Wesley stopped sharing his location services with his wife,
Correct.
correct? And then it also says Sini White stopped sharing location with you on at the exact same time.
Correct.
Okay. Did you look at Sini's phone regarding this as well?
We did.
Was there anything reflected on her phone that confirmed that she stopped sharing with Wesley?
No.
Okay. So is there any way, do you know how Wesley could stop her sharing her location as well?
We tried to recreate that in the lab. We were not able to recreate that without having that show up on both phones. However, I did not turn the phones back on. I did not connect them to the network, putting the SIM cards back into them. So I couldn't use Find Family, Find Friends to do that. So I can't say that there's not another way to do that. We just could not recreate it in the lab. And we're prohibited from hooking that phone back up to the network. And it's going to drastically change what's on that phone.
Fair enough. But when in your experiments or your testing, could you recreate this first line with your phones?
Yes,
In other words, if you stop sharing, that same line would show up on your phone.
that's correct.
The phone you were testing with.
The phone I was testing with.
Okay. So from that, we can gather that at the very least, Wesley stopped sharing his location with Sini at 3:50 a.m. Saturday morning when his daughter went missing.
That is correct.
And within the extraction where you started looking for this information, those show up as 2, looks like text messages between the 2 of them, a second or so apart. Is that
That's
right?
correct. And they're a second apart. So that would tend to make me think that it was an automated process from one phone. I just can't recreate that and testify to that.
In other words, if they were both to set it off at the same time, they would literally have to be.
You'd have to have both phones right together at the same time and push both buttons almost at the same time to do that.
Okay. But it would, if you did that, what you just demonstrated with 2 fingers down on 2 phones, this would show up on her phone,
That is correct.
on
And we did not find that.
Sini's phone. Okay. So other than Wesley's phone, there were a lot of electronic items collected. Is that fair?
That's correct. There were 2 desktop computers, 3 laptops, 6 phones, an iPad, and a digital camera.
Okay, and all of those were analyzed by you guys over at the FBI, is that correct?
We extracted them for investigative review. I didn't go through all of those and look for stuff on a lot of those devices. Those were left for Detective Diaz to do.
Okay. But what we have here is the, for what you did, looking at this phone is things of evidentiary value that we can share with this jury that.
Correct. When I was asked a certain question, can you go look and verify this, then I would go ahead and do those things. But I didn't do a full examination of every device. Number one, because in the beginning we were looking for a missing child. We weren't looking to go through the phone, so I provided those as quickly as possible for investigative review.
Thank you, Special Agent. Ask the witness.
Defense.
God, I reserve my right to cross into my case in chief.
State, we have a phone number for the witness.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, you may step down for now, thank you. And state, please call your next witness.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
Yes, come on up. All right, members of the jury, we are going to take a 10-minute break. If you need to use this time to continue trying to contact family members, I know some have come already and brought some belongings, but if you need to continue to make phone calls, you may do so. Additionally, those 4 individuals that were identified by Sheriff's Officer Arteezy, you need to notate somewhere, Arteezy, there should be paper in the bag for you all to notate those that need to be transported, okay? All right, Sheriff, if you can take it to the back.
All rise.
You may be seated, and let's get the attorneys up to the front. And just let me know when you're ready. Okay. I'll over here, you guys.
I'm ready, Judge.
All rise.
You may be seated. Members of the jury, we are going to recess for the day. I want to remind you the instructions that I went over with you last week. Additionally, your phones will be kept here this evening in a locked sleeve. The hotel in which you'll be staying at will not have any TVs in the room. You are not to watch TV of any sort. You are not to communicate with anyone that's not of your jury. And you're not to communicate with anyone of your jury about this case. Do you understand what that means? You all cannot talk to each other about the case, and you cannot talk to anyone else about the case. You are not to be influenced by anyone regarding this case. The only thing that you were to consider are the facts and the evidence as they are admitted in this trial, which is why you're going to be sequestered, okay? So you all are to make sure that even when you're eating in the morning at the hotel, that you're not watching television, okay? There will be a sheriff's officer with you as well to ensure that that does not happen. Those of you that will need to be transported to your homes, you cannot communicate with any of your family members once you get to the residence. You have to strictly go and get the medicine that you needed or pack the clothes that you needed. You'll be transported by a sheriff's officer to do the same, okay? We will start as close to 8:30 a.m. as possible. You will be transported back to the courthouse by the sheriff's officers and brought to the secure jury room in the back, okay? You'll leave your juror numbers in the back when you leave today, but you will keep your juror badges on your person, okay? When you come back in the morning, you will have your juror badges on your person before you enter the courthouse, okay? All right, Sheriff?
Yes, ma'am. All rise.
Officer, you can walk on now. Seated. All right, attorneys, come on back up. And then Lisa, if you can do me a favor.